was my lens, not what you thought it was.
Have you built up for this exact moment right now?
No, I have a one-day plan. I'm not real good at looking too far in the future. Just try to do a good job every day. That's kind of how we approach it.
And how you view this season, just, I mean, you talked about the expectations coming in, but with the team that you have and the things that you can do, how do you view this season as opposed to previous years?
Well, I don't really view it any differently. You know, every day our goal is just to be the best we can be that day and then come back the next day and be a little bit better. And I think that's the approach you have to take. I think if you look too far down the line or listen to what's going on outside, you make a terrible mistake and you hamper your ability to be successful. So for us, it's always about narrowing the focus down to what we can control and what matters, and that's what we're doing that day. And, you know, I know that sounds very cliche and it's boring and nobody wants to hear it, but it's the truth. I mean, it really is the truth. And what's fun for me, exciting for me, is that our players have embraced that philosophy. You know, I don't think that when you get around our team, you hear them talking about the outside expectations or, you know, the long-term goals. They talk about the process, you know, the grind, going to work every day and being great. And so that gives you hope as a coach when you feel your players starting to take on the same mindset that you have and that you want them to take on.
You've been monitoring the temperatures in San Bernardino?
I hope it's hot. What is it, Tracy?
About 107.
Good. I just would like us to be in triple digits. As long as we're in triple digits, I'll be happy. No, the San Bernardino heat is just, I guess it's a plus. The reason we go there is not because of the heat, it's because it gives us a chance to get into an environment where there's fewer distractions, where we're isolated, where we can focus on each other, get to know each other better, build those bonds that you need to help you through a season, you know, overcome some adverse environment, climate. But I like the weather. I like it hot. I think it's good for us.
Are you planning the San Diego retreat again prior to camp?
Retreat? That's a nice way to put it. 3 days with the SEALs, a retreat? No, we're going right to San Bernardino, and we're going to get to work. We've done that. You can't do it every year. It loses its impact. And I thought it was incredibly productive for us last year. I think it helped us get through a lot of really difficult times. Most specifically the death of Nick Pasquale, you know, but it's time for us really just to go up there and just start practicing football and becoming the best football team we can become.
How much more can you trust Brett this year after 3 years in the offense?
I have a lot of trust in Brett, and I think our team and our coaches have a lot of faith that he's going to do the right thing. And the reason is because he's put the work in. You know, he just doesn't show up and kind of wing it. He's had a great off season. He's invested a lot of time in his craft, and he understands this offense now. He understands his capabilities. He knows the players around him a lot better, and so when you see a young man work as hard as Brett is and be as invested as he is in this team and in his position, it gives you a great deal of faith in him.
Was there anything different about this offseason compared to the last few with him?
Yeah, I mean, he spent time. We made a conscious decision to try to expose him to some NFL players. You know, he spent time with Phillip Rivers. He spent time, as we all know, with Peyton Manning last week. He spent time with Tim Tebow talking about leadership things and guiding the team. You know, he spent more time in the office, you know, in informal situations, kind of, you know, sitting in Coach Clem's office and just talking about protections, or sitting in Coach Olbrich's office and talking about defense, just so he could have a better understanding of the game. I think, you know, after 2 years in the system, he was able to do that. He understands what we're doing on offense. Now, you can always increase your knowledge, but it's time for him just to expand and learn a little bit more about the rest of the game, and he did a tremendous job of that.
Jim, what do you think, not only Huntley and the rest of the quarterbacks, they kind of stack them in?
Oh, I don't even think there's a conference that's close in terms of the quality of quarterbacks. And that's not to say that they're all going to go be great NFL players, but they're great college football players. You know, every week you get ready to play a Pac-12 quarterback, and there's a trait that they have that is unique, that is, you know, difficult to defend. And I have great respect for the quarterbacks in this conference. I think many of them will go on and have great professional careers, but it is, to me, I don't think it's even close. I don't think that there's another conference that has near the quality of quarterbacks, and I think there's a lot of great quarterbacks.
Let's talk about your defense.
Well, I'm excited about our defense. Jeff Olbrich takes over as our defensive coordinator. He was our linebacker coach and special teams coordinator the last 2 years. You know, he's a passionate guy with a great knowledge base. He played 10 years for the San Francisco 49ers as a linebacker, so he really understands the player's perspective. He's got great energy, and our players really respond well to him. I think that we've got some depth on defense. We're losing some really good players. You know, 3 guys that got drafted. Cassius Marsh and Eric Kendricks and Anthony Barr, so we've got to replace those guys, but we've got our entire secondary basically coming back. I think we've got a pretty good group of linebackers, although, like I said, it'll be tough to replace those 2 guys. And then our defensive line, I think one of the main concerns for me defensively would be how do we replace Cassius and Anthony's productivity rushing the passer, because they were productive, and it didn't always register in the amount of sacks, but pressures and just disruptions and making the quarterback, uncomfortable or move out of the pocket. So how do we replace those numbers? And someone's going to have to step up and do it.
Jim, how have things changed over the past 2 years? I mean, you can talk about what you want to do with the program, but when kids see what you've done over the past 2 years, when you go to high schools or you go talk to kids and they've seen what you've done, and how have things changed when you talk to them, because they've actually seen it now?
Well, when you're having some success, and our success right now, in my opinion, is still very limited. We haven't won the Pac-12 championship. We haven't beat. We're 0-3 against Stanford. I don't want our players to feel like we're extra special. We've accomplished the goals that we set out to accomplish. I think we're on the right track, but I think that there's some. When you have a guy like Brett Hundley, or you've got a guy like Miles Jack, who is kind of a national story. Anytime you can get positive visibility, it helps your recruiting. It helps you when you go into a home and they're familiar with Miles Jack. And maybe you're talking to a player about being a two-way athlete, and other teams are as well. And you can say, well, we can show you 10 guys playing both ways, and other teams do that. And so that's how it helps us.
You mentioned Stanford. What in your mind has enabled them to separate a little bit, to win 2 in a row the way they have? And what have you learned sort of about what it will take to...
Consistency. I think, going from Harbaugh and then staying in-house and going to David, who's a very stable coach and a great man, principal, that they are always going to stay true to the type of student athlete they recruit. They have a formula, and they stick to their formula, and their formula works. When you play a Stanford team, they're not going to make a lot of mistakes. They're not going to beat themselves. You're going to have to beat them. They're very disciplined. They're very tough. They tackle well. They don't break down in coverage. Their quarterback takes care of the football. Their receivers make great catches. Their runners run hard. They're big and physical up front. So they've got that formula that they've had consistency with, and that's what we're striving for: consistency in the way that we do things.
There's so many eyes on Brett. What this season makes him more capable of kind of navigating that spotlight than maybe past seasons? Maturity.
He's older. He's more mature. He's played now 2 years. He's been in the national spotlight a little bit more. I think he's prepared himself this offseason very well. I think that when you go spend some time with a guy like Phillip Rivers, and it's not just about sitting down talking X's and O's, but how do you balance your life? How do you prepare during the week to play well on Sunday? How do you balance your obligations to your family and your profession? Now with Brett, it's not necessarily family and profession, but it's school, it's social. It's going to be for him a lot of media obligations, and then we've got to do a good job as a staff of making sure we protect him. But Brett's an incredibly mature young man, and he's a very gracious and genuine kid, and I think he'll navigate this very, very well. And you know what? He deserves it, and he'll handle it well. He has an ego like we all do, but he has his ego firmly in check.
Any personnel or injury updates heading into San Bernardino?
We lost Austin Roberts to an ACL, but I think that is already public knowledge. And that's unfortunate because he was really doing well in the offseason. He'll be back strong. just 7-on-7, I guess. You know, I wasn't there, but he came down on it wrong. And he's going to get surgery. Other than that, nothing right now. I think, you know, I got an injury report a couple days ago, and it looks like we're on track with all the guys that were kind of iffy if they were going to be able to go or not. They all look like they're going to be able to go. Simon, Connor, of course, Johnny Johnson's not going to be able to. You know, there were the guys that we already knew that were out, but those guys that were, you know, right on the bubble, it looks like we're going to get all those guys back. We had a little scare the other day with Justin Combs. They thought he tore his pec muscle, but he didn't, and so he's going to be okay as well.
Is Johnny done for the season?
Johnny is done for the season. Yeah, he had to have surgery. It was the second time.
Same shoulder, right?
Coach Mora, will you rely a little more on the running game this season, or will you see more of a balanced attack?
You know, I think it's a week-to-week proposition. You like balance, but balance doesn't always mean that it's 50-50. You know what I mean? Balance means that if you have to throw the ball to win the game, you can throw it to win. And if you have to run it to win, you can run it to win. You know, I want to be that type of team where we're not one-dimensional. You know, I think that our offensive line, we started 3 true freshmen last year, very young. I think we had a freshman All-American in Simon Boynes that's not even starting right now. So we finally got some depth there. If we can stay healthy, I think that we should be able to run the ball effectively. I think Brett developing as a passer and the receiving core we've got should help us run the ball. And then, you know, Brett, you know, I like when Brett takes off and run. I count those as runs. Those go in the run yardage. So, but I'd like to be able to, you know, my personality is I'd like to be able to just pound it at people. And we're getting a little bit closer to where we can do that.
You've talked about your commitment to the program before, but you had a chance to go other places you did not. Was that ever close, or what you built here was too hard to leave?
You know, UCLA showed a tremendous commitment to me, and they trusted me by hiring me. And you know, I love it there, and I don't want to go anywhere. You know, it's home now, and I want to see us build something special. And so, you know, I'm committed to our university. I'm committed to Dan Guerrero, and probably most importantly, I'm committed to our players. You know, we go recruit these kids, and we go in their homes, and we talk to their parents, and we ask them to commit to us, and then you see coaches run out on them. And I don't think that's right. You know, we sit in our meeting rooms, we talk to our kids about being selfless and sacrifice and putting the team first, and then you see coaches, when the first opportunity comes up to take off and better their situation, they run and do it, and they leave these kids behind with these, to me, empty lessons, and that's not who I want to be. So I'm staying there until they kick me out. I mean, that might be tomorrow, who knows, but I've been kicked out before, but I'm staying until they kick me out.
Jim, was all that in play when your name was up for Washington a year ago? That was a lot.
Is that how I felt?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I always feel. You know, I mean, I never was going to leave UCLA. I mean, Dan Guerrero went out on a limb when he hired me. Let's not kid anybody, okay? It wasn't the most popular hire in the history of college sports, I can promise you that. So, you know, he showed a real faith in me, and I appreciate that. I'm a loyal person, and I love it. I mean, where are you at UCLA? Where else are you going to go? I mean, everyone can argue that, well, you go here. But for me, this is the place I want to be.
Is there a level of comfort now, vindication? You talked about Guerrero going out on a limb. You know, you said you're not at the successful point you want to be, but you feel a little bit more vindication or satisfaction now?
Well, no, because I don't really live that way. Like, I'm not a, you know, I don't live in the past. I don't live in the future. I kind of just live in the present. And so I don't.
You just kind of look back at it and laugh?
No, I don't even look back at it. I mean, I appreciate it, but I don't waste a whole lot of time on it.
Okay.
And Coach, with all the hype with Hunley in the preseason, how are you keeping? How are you?
We got a heck of a quarterback coach. That's what I'm sure professional.
How are you keeping your team concentrated on all things and focused?
You know what? It hasn't been that hard to do because of the group of young men we have. Their goals, I think, are aligned with mine. Their mindset is like mine, which is, you know, every day has got to be a great day. You know, when you've got a strength and conditioning coach like Sal, who's got him for the summer and commands the respect that you that he commands from them, and they react the way that they react to him. It makes it very, very easy. You know, that's one of the things that's exciting for me is that I don't see our kids being distracted, you know, by people coming around. You know, it's one of the reasons I feel comfortable with us doing the drive on the Pac-12 network is that I think we're mature enough now to handle any so-called distraction. So it hadn't been maybe I'm dead wrong. I mean, maybe it's going to be a problem, but I don't think it is.
Have you laid down any ground rules for the drive?
Oh,
you said
any? List.
Well, let's hear some.
I'm very protective of our space, our environment. I think there's a sanctity of the core. Phil Jackson used to talk about, you know, your locker room is special. Who you let in to your environment dictates, you know, kind of the climate. So anytime you let someone in a meeting that the players haven't seen, it can change the climate of the meeting. So, you know, initially we'll start with our photographers in there because our photographers are in there all the time. You know, I don't know that people know that, but because of recruiting, because of, you know, marketing, you have cameras around you all the time. So our players are used to having cameras follow them 24/7. But they're also used to the faces that are behind that camera. And so initially, until they start to learn some of these other people and see that they are a part of our team, we just have to be diligent about making sure we protect our environment. And then we have full editorial control. So nothing's going to get out there that we don't want out there, or it'll be the last show we do. So.
NFL experience help with managing that kind of stuff now that the exposure is rising on college? I mean,
I don't know, maybe probably a little bit. You know, there's nothing that the NFL does that's any more significant than this. You know, in my opinion, I just think we have good kids. We have good coaches, and our kids, our young men have, like I said, they've embraced the mindset that we've asked them to embrace, which is let's take care of today, the business at hand. I'm not saying we're perfect, and it's like that every single day. You know, like, you know, brainwashed, but we're moving in that direction, and that's encouraging.
Do you think there's so much star power on offense, right? With Brett, obviously he gets a lot of attention. Do you think the defense gets overlooked a little bit? I mean, obviously you lose AB, but
I wish the whole team was getting overlooked. Okay, that's how I look at it. But probably, although Miles brings that star
Miles
power.
maybe.
But you know, Owa's a heck of a player, and Eric's here today, and Eric's a heck of a player, and the way Anthony Jefferson, I mean, anyone that knows UCLA like you three guys do, have seen what Anthony Jefferson's had to go through to get to where he is. I mean, that's a great story in itself. So, a little bit, but that's okay. You know, and I don't think it bothers anybody. One of the true indicators to me about the personality of our team was last year when Miles started carrying the ball a lot, and we played 10 defensive players on offense. Well, you might expect that there would be a jealousy factor, or wait a minute, you know, Jordan James said, wait a minute, I'm the running back, and there was never any of that. It was always just complete encouragement for what can we do to be better as a football team. Does that mean Miles carries the ball? Great. Does that mean Eddie Vanderdoes catches it on 4th and 2 versus Arizona State? Great. That's what we do. Everyone's pulling together. So we got to keep that. We got to keep that dynamic. That's really important.
How do you keep that dynamic, I guess?
You just constantly emphasize being selfless, and you don't allow any selfishness to permeate your environment. You nip it in the bud. You pay attention to it. You don't make exceptions. There are no sacred cows on our team. I mean, our best players are held to the exact same standard as our, you know, less talented players. And I think you just have to be diligent about it all the time. Can't let it slip.
Does that kind of tie into the fact that, like you were saying before, you stayed here because you wanted to keep up those kind of lessons? I mean,
that's what's important to me right now. Yeah, and I think those are important lessons for our young men to learn. I think they're learning. Like I said, they're not perfect. I mean, we all make mistakes, and when you're dealing with 120 17 to 22-year-olds, I mean, things are gonna pop up on occasion. But they're getting it. They're getting it. And I think that's a credit to them and their families and our assistant coaches.
Just as long as those things don't pop up on the Pac-12 network, then it's fine.
Editorial. There you go.
Talk about recruiting.